Steve Christou, thanks so much for joining us on the briefing.
Thank you for having me.
At the council meeting where you proposed this motion, you showed a picture of a book called Same-Sex Parents. It's by Holly Duhigg. And this morning you told the Today Show that any form of sexualisation shouldn't be exposed in our libraries. What do you find sexual about that book?
Well, look, our community, it's not specifically what we find sexual about that book. Our community strongly feels, or the majority of our community strongly feels, that children should just be allowed to go into a library and not have 2, 3, and 4-year-olds questioning around same-sex parents. What's important for a young child or toddler is that they're in a home where they're loved, in a warm bed, got warm clothes, a roof over their head, and well taken care of, regardless if it's from traditional mum and dad or same-sex parents. And a lot of people in our community strongly feel that 2, 3, and 4, and 5-year-olds shouldn't be exposed to these kind of questions and books at such a young age.
What about 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds who are children of same-sex parents?
Again, what's important is that they're being raised, they're being raised and well cared for, and they shouldn't have to be questioning. They should be allowed to be children. They shouldn't be questioning or being burdened with adult issues. These are essentially adult issues, and we've been very firm on this. It's not just singling out same-sex parents. Our
But it
community.
is singling out same-sex parents, isn't it? Because the motion that was at the meeting says to rid same-sex parents' books/materials in the council's library service. That specifically says same-sex parents and says nothing about sexualisation.
My understanding is, and I was very firm, and I've been very firm when commenting about this, that we don't approve of any form of sexualisation to children in our councils. Now,
What's
this issue blew up.
sexualising about same-sex parents?
Well, look, as I said, let kids be kids, okay? Children have a right to just go in and not having to worry about this. So if they have same-sex parents, well, great. As long as they're well cared for, not a problem. Children shouldn't have to worry about this at the age of 2, 3, and 4 years old. And we're
What
reflecting the views of our residents. Australia would be a better place if more elected representatives actually did their job and represented their views of their local community. And our
what's in
community are telling us loud and clear.
what's inherently sexual to you about same-sex parents as opposed to heterosexual parents?
Again, I've responded to that question, and you can ask it any way respectfully. You can ask it in 10 different ways,
Well, the
and I'm
reason
going to
the
ask
reason
it.
I'm asking you that in that way is because there are parenting books that don't include same-sex parents. There are parenting books that are exclusively heterosexual, but this one is about same-sex parenting and it's age appropriate. That's what it says on the blurb. So, what is it about this book that you find disturbing or that you don't think
It's
should
not
be in the
about.
library?
Well, you say it's age appropriate. Many in our communities say they find it concerning that it's in the children's section of the library. As elected representatives,
Why?
we have a responsibility. So, can you let me finish, please? As elected representatives, we have a responsibility to listen to the views of our community. It was only a few weeks ago that we had 400 people show up to a council meeting to oppose drag story reading time. Any elected representative that says they're not taking the views of their community seriously doesn't deserve to be in the job. Now,
Uh,
admittingly, you're never going to please every section of the community, no matter what decision you make as an elected representative. There's going to be some sections of the community unhappy. Cumberland City Council is a very diverse community, very multicultural community. 60% of our residents were born overseas. They hold very family, conservative, and religious values, regardless of what their religious background is, whether they're Christian, Catholic, Orthodox, Islamic, Buddhist, Hindu, it doesn't matter. And they are constantly relaying to us that we don't want any form of materials in our libraries that take away our children's innocence outside of being kids. Let kids be kids. Let them come in, enjoy reading a book, enjoy playing with their friends at the library who they might read up, without having to go through unnecessary questions on issues they shouldn't have to worry about till later in life.
What about the 14% of your constituents who are atheist? How are they represented by this motion?
Well, I wouldn't say the whole 14 disagree disagree with the motion either. As I said, as an elected representative, we have a responsibility to try and convey, well, definitely I do, to try and convey the wishes of the majority of our community. No matter what decision you come up with, there's always going to be a section of the community that's not happy, and that's life. But at the end of the day, as elected representatives, we get judged once every 4 years by our community. Now, we have a unique community. We're not the inner west. We're not Newtown, Marrickville or Ashfield, where they're in support of these issues being in libraries. We have a unique community, and we're only representing the values and the views expressed to us by that community. If they think come September, which is local government election time this September, that we're not representing their views, they will say, okay, it's time for you to move on and we'll give someone else a go. Or else they might say, well, you are representing our views, you get to stay on for a bit longer.
Okay, let's take the democratic principle that you're ascribing there and see if it applies to things that aren't inherently queer. Every census in Australia, more people say that they have no religion. It's up to about 40% now of the population. If atheism overtakes religiosity in Australia, should the federal government ban religious texts in order to protect children from questions about religion?
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals, okay? When that issue comes along, obviously we'll have those discussions, but I'm all about having open discussions, discussing facts and what's being conveyed to us.
Okay, but it's about a democratic
I'm not
principle.
going to engage in hypotheticals.
It's a democratic principle. You're saying that the
Right.
majority of your community doesn't want same-sex parenting material in its library. I'm asking if the same thing happened on a larger scale about religion rather than sexuality, would you think that it's a good idea for the federal government to ban the Bible, the Quran, for example?
Well, good luck to them if they try. We're not. What you're trying to do is get into a broad church and umbrella, but at the end of the day, elected representatives are elected to represent the views of their community, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And until those views change, or we'll be doing the same thing we always do. We're doing nothing less than what's expected of us as an elected representative. Cumberland is very diverse. We're a multicultural community. We're a unique mix. So, that's our responsibility to represent the views of what we feel are the majority of the community.
If your view is that the majority of the community has a problem with same-sex parenting or same-sex parents, do you feel that you need to reflect that in council policy? Isn't that just homophobia?
Well, look, no. I believe you're twisting it here. The majority of my parents or the complaints relayed to me do not have a problem with same-sex parents. What they have a problem with is controversial books being placed regardless of their background, being placed in the infants or toddler section of our libraries. And that message has been very clear, and we've been very consistent on this.
Do you know any same-sex parents?
Yes, I do.
Have you spoken to them about this policy?
Not in the last 24 hours, but I've had a lot of gay people tell me they support the stance, and there should not be any form of sexualisation, regardless of background.
But we've established that both the motion that you brought to council does not talk about sexualisation, and this book that we're talking about
as I've already answered you, I just answered you.
hasn't got sexual content
You asked
in it.
me. You asked me.
You brought up
respectfully.
you brought up sexualisation. You're saying that's
and when I mean
the problem.
sexualisation, any form of questions of where a 2, 3, or 4-year-old are asking difficult questions that they shouldn't have to deal with. And as I said before, if you're a young child, you're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, regardless of their age, the main issue is that they're in a home with loving parents, regardless of whether they're traditional mums and dads or same-sex parents. However, they shouldn't be burdened with going into a library and then questioning issues that are essentially for adulthood or why they're being raised for different parents. That's not for them. The main thing leave our kids alone. Kids just need to be loved and well looked after.
If you're a child and you go into a library and your parents are same-sex parents, I imagine that there are same-sex parent families in Cumberland Shire, and you see yourself represented in this kind of book. Isn't that a good thing? Doesn't that show that those people aren't alone?
No, it also raises questions too that possibly why am I different and why am I being raised differently? And children shouldn't have to go through that. We're saying let kids be kids. You know, all kids care about. I know when I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, you know, children don't care about on who's raising them and sexual orientation. Children just want to play with their toys, play with their friends, and just enjoy themselves. It's very simple.
The blurb about same-sex parents, the book on amazon.com.au, describes it like this: the experience of having same-sex parents is highlighted in this age-appropriate book. You'll disagree about age-appropriate, but we'll move on. Readers will be exposed to what it's like to live with either two mums or two dads. Readers who live with same-sex parents will enjoy seeing a relatable narrative about their family dynamic. Again, isn't that a good thing?
Again, that's the views of some people. I don't believe that's a majority of the views from the Cumberland City Council community. I'm only representing the views and expressions expressed to myself as an elected representative.
Do you worry that this intervention will do exactly the opposite of what you're hoping for and, in fact, increase the sales of this book?
Well, if it does, great. You know, people, look, at the end of the day, people are very welcome to go out and purchase whatever they want in a private capacity. But when the majority of your residents are telling you we don't want taxpayer ratepayer dollars having these books in the children's section of the library, you know, you've got to take that seriously into account. Now, the whole issue would have never came to light if the book wasn't in the children's section of the library and perhaps was in the adult section of the library.
Do you think that all books that have any sexual content should be taken away from the library?
That's always been my consistent belief, and I've been very clear on this. If it creates confusion and burdens a child with unnecessary issues at a young age, yes, they shouldn't be in the library.
Would you say Twilight, the Bible?
Oh, look, I've been asked a question on the Bible. You find me a 2 or 3-year-old that can read and comprehend the Bible and understand it, then we'll have a discussion.
Okay. Steve Christou, thanks so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye-bye, guys.